You may have seen my walkthroughs of the full 911 ranges from G model up to 991. There are 5 of them, and I'll put a link to the series in the description below, and there's a pop-out at the top of the screen too. This time though, something different, a look through the sexiest range of Porsches of all, the GT ranges across the years. GT, GT1, GT2, GT3 and even GT4 with all RS, Weissach packages, Rs and touring packages in between. Like the last times, I built a guide which shows you all the different models in the range, and I will guide you through both the mainstream and ultra rare versions of the sportiest range of 911s. The one-pager guide shows you the years each model was made, how many of each model was made, where possible, its engine capacity and how much horsepower each one had. So I hope that by the end of this, if you are looking for a fast GT model, then you'll be better educated for your search and know which are the genuinely rare cars. Well, they are all rare in this walkthrough, but some are rarer than others. We will also look at what these lovely machines cost as we go through the tour. As is befitting their rarity, I have been hard pushed to find any GT model much below $60,000, and that includes the Cayman R, which is not strictly speaking a GT car. If we remove that, then $80,000 is the floor. We will see though as we will go through this together. So, off we go. It's important to set context here, I think. In the general scheme of things, the GT models are a relatively recent development. The very first GT car was the Porsche 911-993 GT of 1996. However, before we get to that, I want to say that this isn't where the lineage should trace its roots. No, for that we must explore what a GT car is, and to look at what these lovely cars are before they are marketed as a GT of some kind. A race car for the road, and quite different to other ranges of Porsche and of 911, and a distinct range in its own right these days. The turbo models are relatively anodyne in comparison, as the hitherto most well-known power model in Porsche's 911 range. The GT models are stripped out, lighter, focused machines that go after outright speed rather than simple power. They are tighter handling cars, with models in the range to take you closer or further away from comfort depending on how far you want to go, along the continuum of speed at the expense of comfort. The Porsche turbos, on the other hand, are, in my opinion at least, and possibly indeed at most, an extension of the Carrera ranges, but with a dose of power thrown in for good measure. No, the GTs are something quite special, and the true halo cars of the entire Porsche range, in my opinion. Sure, you have the Carrera GTs and the 918s, but the true meaning of a Porsche encapsulated in a range is the GT models, a 911 that is light, fast and handles better than any other. Once you define it that way, then the lineage of this range starts to become apparent and goes back further than the 993 variant of Porsche 911. So whilst in this video we will focus on the cars that actually bear the GT badges, we must give an honourable mention to a number of cars that precede them. Firstly, the car that started this concept and which is the most sought after of all, the 1973 Carrera RS, the beginning of something great, although there was a rather large gap in time before Porsche realised that they had a niche that they hadn't explored properly. Can you imagine the Porsche of today missing a niche with their endless combinations of ranges of models? In fact, it was 1992 before Porsche used the RS name again in their road cars. And even then, in the 964 variant of Porsche 911, they were built in tiny numbers and with notable cynicism about whether this was what the US market wanted. I will link to my Porsche 964 guide in the description below and above so that you can follow the story there. Same deal with the 993, although we do at least see the Porsche GT badge being used for the first time, where the GT model is actually one of the rarest in the entire Porsche run, with only 57 made in total. Again, these cars were homologated for racing, where at the time four-wheel drive had been banned. So Porsche took its 911 turbo model of the day, stripped it of its four-wheel drive components and saved additional weight too by using bolt-on exterior parts made of plastic. The engine was given a boost over the turbo model, and until 1997 it was just called the GT, and after that the Porsche 911 GT2. Frequently included in books about the Holy Grail and unicorns, the GT2 is all but unobtainable these days. One was, however, auctioned in 2016 and sold for an eye-watering $2.4 million. However, there was one very important Porsche GT car produced at the same time as the GT2, the GT1. Now we are talking. Take a look at this machine. As you can see, a very distinctive car, and unlike all GT cars that came after it too. Again, a homologated car, but not in the same way as other manufacturers were interpreting these rules. Most considered that it meant taking a road car and making a race car. Whereas here, Porsche made a race car and then made a road car from it. Inventive, right? A twin turbocharged flat 6 engine pushing out 536 bhp from its 3.2 litres. Two prototypes were made in 1996 with Porsche 911 993 style headlights, then a run of approximately 20 cars in 1997 with 996 style front lights, and then this sole car in 1998 to match new homologation rules. With a curb weight of just over 2,500 pounds, this was a very fast car for its day. Good luck finding one for sale, of course, but they have been known to come up for sale from time to time at prices of over $7 million for the Strassenversion, or street version in English. Moving forward into the beginnings of Porsche exploiting this niche in earnest, and the 996 GT3 of 1999. This car was originally a Europe-only car, as Porsche didn't think America would be much of a market for such hard cars. The first very important thing to mention in case you think of the 996, and the first thing you think of is engine disasters and IMS bearings, is that these cars do not share the same engine as the Carrera models. These actually have Metzger engines in them from the turbo models. No turbos on these cars though, and 3.6 litres gave you 355 bhp in the 996.1 cars. Same concept as ever with a GT car, all unnecessary weight was stripped, but you could specify some of it back in at additional cost if you like, such things as a radio or air conditioning. There was even a Club Sport package in the 996.1 version which gave you racing seats and a roll cage if you really did want to be uncomfortable. American customers were catered for in 2004 when the facelifted GT3 in the Porsche 996.2 came out with 381 horsepower. Desirable cars today, and for many the absolute pick of the 996 Porsche range. They can be found for $70,000 to $120,000, and if you really wanted 996.1, there are plenty on the German car websites, and they would be importable to the US these days too, as they're older than 25 years. Have a look at mobile.de or autoscout24.com. We are not quite done with the 996 though. For European customers, Porsche went one step further in 2003 and gave customers who wanted the ultimate stripped out experience the GT3 RS. Very rare cars and really stripped out of all such luxuries as glass, which was replaced with perspex in places, and stickers in place of badges. There are some on the market now at prices over $200,000 if you'd like one. Still not done with the 996 though. The GT2 came along in 2002 with the turbo version and 476 bhp. Nicknamed the Widowmaker due to its power and rear-wheel drive, this was a very fast car indeed, although not a homologation special and a bit more road-oriented than its GT3 brothers. Look to spend between $120,000 and $190,000 for one of those. Onwards to the 997 version of the Porsche 911 we go then, and Porsche realising that in fact it's onto something here. Also, these cars made much more use of technology to achieve the mission too. Again, the GT model range is split into the 997.1 and 997.2 ranges. So let's start with the former. The GT3 came along in 2006 with Porsche PASM adjustable suspension system, and again using the proven Metzger engine of the prior 996 range, this time pushing out 409 bhp. Both GT3 RS and GT2 models were launched around the same time, and they followed the same formula as the 996 models. The GT3 RS had no more power than the GT3, but did lose weight, and the GT2 had significantly more power at 523 bhp, but was a bit more comfortable. Things got more interesting when the facelifted version of Porsche 997s were introduced in 2010, when, in fact, Porsche quickly iterated their GT3 model from an enlarged 3.8 engine over the 3.6 litre version of the 997.1, pushing out 429 bhp in the GT3 and 444 bhp in the GT3 RS, and enlarging it again with the GT3 RS up to the universally praised 4 litre GT3 RS of 2011 with its 493 bhp. The latter is a seriously respected car in Porsche circles and one to look out for. 997.2 GT3s can be had for around $110,000, whereas 3.8 GT3 RSs go up to $140,000 to $160,000, and the 4 litre GT3 RSs are even more at north of $350,000. See what I mean by well respected? Porsche didn't forget the GT2 in the facelifted 997 model, and they actually stopped the GT2 and started the GT2 RS in 2010 and made just 500 cars that got an astonishing 612 horsepower from its 3.8 litre turbocharged flat 6. There is some truth to the rumour that this car was specifically produced to attack the then Nissan GT-R's time around the Nürburgring. This time was beaten by the GT2 RS by some 9 seconds. There are quite a number of very low, almost delivery mileage Porsche 997 GT2 RSs for sale in the US market. Not sure why quite so many, but they are all around the $330,000 mark. Okay, to the 991 version of the Porsche 911 then. Porsche were getting quite good at the GT models by then, not to mention catering for every available niche of their customer base, as my video walkthrough of that model range shows. You can pick up the story of the main model ranges there. Meantime, the 991.1 GT3 came to the market in 2013 with 469 horsepower from its new 3.8 litre direct fuel injection engine. Porsche had serious reliability problems with these engines and were forced to recall all 785 made and put in new engines. Metallurgical defects in production caused these issues, and Porsche also issued these cars with a 10-year transferable warranty. Check that it has it if you are buying one. $110,000 to $125,000 should get you into one. 2015 brought us the GT3 RS, following the by now familiar formula of stripping out all weight by using magnesium parts, bucket seats and even lightweight door handles. They gave it some additional power up to 493 bhp from the 469 of the GT3, and in 2016, and for 1 year only, they introduced a comfort version of the GT3 RS called the R, which removed the roll cage and the more garish bodywork, shall we say, to make it a little more comfortable and to save yet more weight. These particular cars were quite sought after until Porsche then created the touring version in the facelifted 991.2 cars, which essentially replicated the R, but in terms of GT cars at least, mass-produced it. An R is still an attractive car though, so you'll need over $350,000 to park one in your garage. As I mentioned, there were upgrades for the facelifted Porsche 991.2 cars in 2017. The GT3 RS made it up to 513 horsepower, and the GT2 RS was introduced, pushing out an insane 690 bhp, and is, to date, the most powerful Porsche 911 ever built, and standing at just 3,241 pounds, which isn't far off my own powerful enough 996 Carrera in terms of weight. I can't imagine what all that power would feel like. In fact, Porsche offered the Weissach package, which stripped the car of another 66 pounds. Interestingly enough, 4 cars were lost in transit when a carrier ship sank, and Porsche reopened the production lines to build new cars again, so that the total volume of 1,000 cars would be realised. That is looking after your customers, ladies and gentlemen. It would be very easy to end here, but we absolutely should include the Cayman, which has produced interesting GT models. Of course, once the demand for the Cayman took root, so did a need to produce a fast handling version. This hasn't quite been seen in the Boxster series yet. Perhaps those are just deemed to be for sun worshippers, who knows, but the Cayman R came along in 2011 with 326 bhp and just 1,621 units. A sort of a tryout GT model before the real thing came along in 2015 with the third generation 981 Cayman GT4 with its 381 bhp, and then in the 718 model with 414 bhp in 2019. Porsche followed familiar principles with the Cayman GT cars, removing weight and introducing a bit more power, as well as enabling them to handle much better than their regular counterparts. This is Porsche doing what they do best, and engineering sports cars to go quickly in a straight line, but also around corners, and they are the pick of the Cayman and Boxster ranges if you can afford one. Cayman R can be found on the market between $60,000 and $70,000, the 987 GT4 between $80,000 and $95,000, and the 718 Cayman GT4 between $100,000 and $140,000 dependent on age and spec. Well, there you have it. That's my walkthrough and video guide to the Porsche GT cars, which I very much hope you enjoyed. More videos coming soon, but in the meantime I would be very grateful if you would push the like button for me if you're still watching at this end of the film. And if you've enjoyed this type of stuff, consider subscribing. It would be great to have you along for the ride and helping to shape what the channel looks like with your feedback and comments. Thank you very much for watching. My best to you and to your families. See you soon.